Welcome to the Still Curtain podcast, powered by stillcurtain.com. It's Monday, February 2nd, and Mike McCarthy is filling out his staff for the 2026 Steelers season. I'm Josh Yourish, joined by Still Curtain's Shayne Kubas to highlight some prospects to keep an eye on coming out of the Senior Bowl, rank the 10 head coaches hired because we have had all of the jobs filled this offseason. But first, Mike McCarthy's filling out his staff, so let's jump into some of those hires. So far, the hires that we know for sure, Coach Tom Orth retained by the Steelers, running back hired Ramon Chinyoung. Adam Henry hired as the wide receiver coach, O-line coach James Campen, assistant O-line coach Jari Evans, assistant, and an interesting name, Frank Sigma here. Maybe we can talk about the IUP offensive coordinator getting a bump up to the staff. Defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, inside linebacker coach Scott McCurley, secondary coach Jason Simmons, and special teams coordinator Danny Crossman. Shane, take it wherever you want. What thoughts do you have before we get to the candidates at offensive coordinator, which to me is the most interesting one remaining? I mean, obviously it's the most interesting one remaining, but thoughts on the group so far?
Yeah, so a couple of things to point out. Obviously, you have to talk about Patrick Graham being the DC for this team. It's certainly an interesting hire. I think he's a guy that is done relatively well in the grand scheme of things, given the defenses that he's coordinated in the NFL up to this point, especially from a talent perspective. I would not say that any of the teams that he's been the DC for has had, let's say, an overwhelming amount of talent. Let's just point that out. Not saying the Steelers necessarily do at this point, despite being the highest paid defense, but they certainly have more pieces to work with and more infrastructure in place than a lot of the teams that he's been with in the past, right? So I do think seeing what he can do with this group, seeing if he can bring a different element to the 3-4 defense that McCarthy clearly wants to keep, which will be able to stay intact with Graham coming over here. That is the style of defense that he's been coached in and worked up through. And I'm very curious to see if he had some ideas to kind of maybe try to maybe unlock some of the guys we currently have that haven't really broken out yet, or some of the guys that are older, like TJ Watt. Can he get more out of him in his scheme than we were able to get with the Tomlin and Austin and all of those guys, what they were doing with him? So I am curious to see what it looks like. I definitely think it's a good hire. So I think we definitely need to start there. And then there is one name that I want to throw out there because I think it's interesting. Jari Evans is a name everyone should know if you're an NFL fan. Really good guard for the Saints for a very long time. Now coming over from the Saints coaching staff to Pittsburgh to help out with the offensive line, I think that one could be very interesting.
Yeah, offensive line coaching is somewhere that I felt like this. I think, I'm not alone feeling that way. The Steelers have kind of needed an upgrade, haven't necessarily developed all the young guys, right? Like Zach Frazier hit immediately. Mason McCormick has made a lot of strides. Fautanu's gotten better, but like the Broderick Jones issues and everything. So a change there is something I'm excited about with James Campen being the head coach or the offensive line coach, and then Jari Evans, his assistant. On the Patrick Graham hire too, like he's somebody who his stock had kind of been going up, and then he ended up with the Raiders and stays on the staff when Pete Carroll comes in. It seems
3
like
head coach hires at this point is what I think is part of 3 different head coaching regimes, which that doesn't ever really happen. So
no, and I think it speaks highly of like what he is as a coordinator. I also think it lets him off the hook for how bad that Raiders defense was this year, because Pete Carroll tried to bring in a lot of his stuff and it's not really close to the Patrick Graham stuff. And so there was like a lot of clashing there. So I'm interested in it. You mentioned the like wants to keep the 3-4 structure, which like makes sense. That's been the Pittsburgh thing forever. That's the way this team's built already. Does that matter to you? I know teams are playing more base. The Steelers, we talked about how like they kind of had a renaissance a little bit late in the year playing a ton of base. But like, does that matter?
At this point, when people talk about like 3-4 versus 4-3, it's mostly semantics. Like it really is about, like, to me at this point, it's more about what body types do you have as your primary edges. It's not so much, do you want to play with your hand in the dirt or not, or this or that. It's like, what kind of body types do you have? Because TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, those are all traditional 3-4 outside linebacker builds, body types, skill sets. Like they are guys who are going to be at their best typically. Now Watt puts his hand in dirt plenty, but like standing up, being able to drop into coverage, doing those types of things. That's what they're built to do and what the roster is built to do. So keeping the 3-4 for this group makes sense. Now,
Mhm.
if you go to a team like, the Browns, like Myles Garrett is not a guy that generally is going to drop into coverage because why would you ever want him not moving forward? He's, 6'5, 270 pounds. Like he's not a 3-4 edge build, right? So they
Yeah.
are obviously going to generally be in a 4-3 alignment because that's what makes sense for him. Is there plenty of leeway in between them a lot of times, especially when you get more of the hybrid edge guys like the Jalen Walkers of the world coming into the league and stuff like that? Sure. But again, like if you have the body types the Steelers have, that's generally going to be a 3-4 base system is what you're going to run. So it makes sense for them to keep it for now.
Do you have you said for now,
Yeah.
do you have a preference? Because my feeling is, and there are so many different iterations of 4-3-3-4. Like it's
Yes.
obviously a very reductive thing.
There's a lot of hybrid
Um,
schemes and bear fronts and stuff
yeah.
you can do too and whatever. Yeah.
But I feel generally like when we're talking about the body types, because that's the thing that I
Mhm.
would go to as well is like, do you want heavier edges or lighter
Yes.
edges? What are your interior guys kind of look like? Are you two gapping a little bit more? Are you like looking for penetrators, whatever? Um, I would just in terms of like the edge thing, I I tend to like the defenses that have the heavier edges, that have kind of the 4-3 traditional defensive end, like heavier guys. I think it allows you to play nickel more. And I think you see the teams like the Rams and the Seahawks who had a lot of success stopping the run out of light personnel, which is kind of the skeleton key to attack these offenses that are going more 12 personnel, jumbo sets, 13 personnel, whatever. Like to me, the skeleton key is can you stop the run out of nickel so you can still play coverage? I feel like 4-3 edges, at least having bigger edges, gives you an advantage to do that. Do you share that sentiment? Like, do you feel like that's just too reactionary to the immediate moment? Because it kind of is, but do you have a preference generally?
I mean, traditionally for me, like if I was building a defense, I would prefer to have more of the 4-3 edge body types,
Mhm.
mostly because I generally don't like to have those guys not rushing the passer or not moving forward. Like I don't,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying there isn't benefits because when we've seen TJ Watt do crazy stuff with his instincts and coverage and like make interceptions and take stuff away or whatever. But like generally, I want those guys moving forward. I want them to be in attack mode a lot of the time. Like an attacking 4-3 defense in the
Mhm.
traditional sense is probably my preferred way to play defense. And you see a lot of that with teams like the Texans, especially. Like they have that going on right now where those guys are just attacking and the linebackers are attacking downhill and the coverage behind them is good enough that they can do that. And it's not that complicated of a defense, but the talent is just there. So they're able to do the things that are simple just so well that it doesn't really matter that it's simple, right? Like
Mhm.
that is my preferred way to play defense because that's a lot harder to deal with than if you have to scheme stuff up so much and you have to do all these crazy things, you're gonna be putting yourself in position to make mistakes more often, generally,
Yeah.
right? Unless you're so well coached, like Flores has done such a good job with the Vikings that like they don't have that problem as much. But a lot of teams that do have to do those things, they run into problems sometimes because it's hard to ask everybody to do the right thing when you're switching stuff around all the time and asking guys to do stuff. So generally I prefer that, but also the Steelers' way of doing things has generally worked for a long time, and I don't think there's a big enough difference for me to be mad about it per se that they want to stick with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I don't think it's, like, much of a conversation specifically to the Steelers. I think the
No.
the Flores point is interesting in that, like, he does it with, like, Andrew Van Ginkel types
Yeah,
who
he still
are
runs that more that 3-4 hybrid system
yeah.
more than anything, yeah, so he would've been a fit from that perspective.
Yeah, I would've kind of been interested in that in insofar as, like, we're actually doing the blitz and drop and, like,
Mhm.
weird coverage stuff. But Patrick Graham is fine and interesting, and we'll see what that
Yeah,
defense looks like. I think he's somebody that, like you said, through multiple regimes in Vegas, where he kind of had ownership of that defense until obviously Pete Carroll came in, and
yeah.
that got interesting and complicated. But he's going to be like in control of that side of the ball, and we haven't seen that on defense in a
20
very,
years,
very
yeah,
long
yeah,
time, if
more than 20
ever.
years,
Yeah,
yeah.
in Pittsburgh. So I think that'll be definitely very interesting. Do you have any thoughts on like the rest of that staff filled out, or do you want to talk about the offensive coordinator candidates
We can definitely talk
and
about
where it
the
feels like?
OC yeah, the OC candidates. I
Yeah.
will say two notes, keeping Tom Arthur around is interesting to me. Not saying
Mhm.
that I really have a strong opinion of that because, like, what quarterbacks has he really gotten the chance to work with? Phil Chance
Yeah.
anyway. But, like, that's interesting to me that he didn't bring someone in to fill that role. Adam Henry, the receiver coach for the Bills, I know a lot of people have negative feelings about that just because of the Bills receiver room in the past few years, but he also has a history back with helping guys like Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. I think that one could go either way. Honestly, I don't really
Yeah.
super strong opinion on that one. Frankly, like we'll see what he can do with hopefully some more talent being brought in the room. And
I'll
then I was a
admit
little
my
surprised
gut
just because of the reputation.
sorry, not to I'll admit my gut was the Bills wide receiver coach, really?
Yeah,
Like, the Bills' biggest problem is wide receiver, like, so but obviously
but
that's
the
reductive,
talent in
but
that
that was
room,
my
though,
gut initial reaction.
it's
Yeah,
like realistically,
yeah, what are
like
you
I'm not.
actually working with?
Yeah, it's tough when, like, Keon Coleman just probably shouldn't have been the pick there, frankly. Like, no offense to him, but, like, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Shakir's done a good job, as well, so that's
Mhm.
been interesting. But then them not keeping Eddie Faulkner around was a little bit surprising to me just because I felt like his reputation in Pittsburgh was just really good, and I felt like it would be an easy thing to kinda do as one of the retainees, but, Chin Young can do in that role.
Yeah, I agree generally, don't have a strong feeling about it. I feel like
Mhm.
it's hard to have a strong feeling about any of these hires until we see, like, position coach wise, until we see what they do, right?
Yeah, like
What
what
their
they
group
what they
looks
what they
like.
add to the roster too to help them because, like, at some point,
Yeah,
talent matters. It's just matters at some point, no matter how good the position coaching is, like,
yeah,
guys, but, if you're elevating someone from being A, it really only does so much good making them great, right? Like, that's the ideal for a
yeah.
position coach is getting that extra bit out of a guy who already has the ability. So we'll see what they can do in that regard.
And then offensive coordinator, obviously, Mike McCarthy has made it very clear that he's going to be the one calling the
Yeah,
plays.
yeah,
It seems like the candidates are Lunda Wells, who's the Cowboys tight end coach that they interviewed and was with McCarthy there. He stayed on the staff with Brian Schottenheimer. And he's gotten other OC looks as well. I think the Commanders
yeah.
interviewed him before they
I believe
made
so,
their
yeah.
hire. Wow. And then Scott Tolzien, who was the offensive coordinator, correct, in New Orleans this past
He was
season,
the quarterback
and has
coach
worked.
or the passing game coordinator, one of the 2, I think. And
Yeah, yeah. So he's worked with the quarterbacks closely.
yeah,
Tyler Shuck had kind of his breakout
he did.
with Tolzien, and he's a former McCarthy backup. What are you? It seems like it's going to be Tolzien. What are your
That's what
thoughts
seems
there?
really good. And he's a name that I brought up on our last show because I felt like he could be someone
Mhm.
who he would have interest in bringing onto his staff. He's a younger guy, 38, I believe. Again, was in the league for a while as a quarterback. Wisconsin alum, which I know him well from that time period. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. I think what Tyler Shuck did, I think, is helping raise his profile a little bit because again, he did work closely with quarterbacks. Um, right now, again, he was a quarterback coach for Saints last year. That's what his role
Yeah,
was. That's helping raise his profile, I'm sure, because Shuck was a guy that a lot of people really weren't sure what to do with. I know I wasn't sure what to do with him as a draft
I wasn't
prospect.
either.
It was kind of tough. I liked a lot of it, but it's also like, how do you reconcile being 26 and like not playing a ton of football despite that? Like, it was just a weird thing, but he looked really good. So
Mhm.
Tolstein definitely deserves some amount of credit for that. We don't know for sure how much, obviously, but if he's the OC, I think he could at least be a big part of figuring out what do they want to do at quarterback for this year and maybe moving into the future as well.
So, as a non-play calling OC,
Hmm.
do you I mean, it's not gonna move the needle all that much, but, like, are there any things we're looking at schematically that he can bring? Obviously, Kellen Moore, the head coach in New Orleans, kind of like he's had different variations of what he's been as a play caller, and has melded to quarterbacks really well, so that's like, a check in his box if Tolzien was able to, take that on and whatever. Is there any expectation in terms of scheme stuff or anything that he would kind of bring? I'll just generally defer to you on that one as somebody who's a little more in the weeds on this kind of stuff.
Well, I think obviously Moore and McCarthy have a history as well. He was with Cowboys during stints of McCarthy's time there, so
Mhm.
he was the offense coordinator for him at one point as well. So I'm sure that there's overlap in terms of what Tolzien's going to try to bring versus what McCarthy's already seen from Moore in the past. And I
Mhm.
do wonder a little bit, they both come from that background of like wanting to try to make sure the quarterback is getting as much help as possible, trying to make things easier on the quarterback. Like that's kind of what, especially the West Coast offense, is all centered around, is like creating advantageous situations for the quarterback through running the ball well, play action, things of that nature. Like that's what it's all about. And that's what a lot of
Mhm.
offenses right now are doing such a good job of right now. They're not all pure West Coast systems like McCarthy's generally is. Like there's a lot of variance from the Shanahan tree and the McVay tree and all those guys, like what they've changed and added to that from the play action standpoint. But I do think they're going to be bringing a lot of the same ideas probably to the table, like Tolzien will.
Mhm.
You hope that he can bring a little bit more. Like I what I want to see more from this group, especially, is more the spread stuff that I think Kellen Moore's done a good job with in the past as well. Like bring some of that to whatever quarterback is going to be the future quarterback here, because they're probably realistically coming from the college game. They're probably not going to be running a West Coast system if they're
Yeah.
if they're in college, right? Like at least not a traditional one. So having someone who can maybe bridge the gap a little bit for whoever the quarterback's going to be, even Will Howard, who if he's the quarterback this year, which we keep hearing rumors that may be the case of how much they like
Yeah.
him, he's probably going to need time to settle into a true like pro system, even compared to what he ran with Chip Kelly at Ohio State. It's going to be good to have someone who can maybe bridge that gap a little bit.
And then special teams coordinator Danny Crossman replacing Danny Smith. Obviously, this is, you know, pour out a
Yeah,
some double
pour out a
bubble.
tub of pour out a tub of
Yeah.
double bubble for Danny
For
Smith.
our
Yeah.
guy Danny Smith. Any like actual thoughts here? Or I mean, like, because I feel like Danny Smith has been a very good special teams
Yeah.
coordinator for a while and would have had no problem with him being retained. I also don't really have a problem with them moving on from him.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, obviously he's an older coach, but he's had a lot of success in the NFL. He's really coached up. He's had a lot of star special teamers. His special
Yeah.
teams overall, I think, have been mostly good, if not a little bit underwhelming at times, and sometimes actually well above average. It's been kind of a variance with him. But you look at what he was able to do with rookie linebacker Bruner, Carson Bruner, yeah. This year,
Mhm.
like he was one of the standout special teamers in the NFL. Ben Skowronek already was one, but he kind of, I think, has kind of raised his profile even more since he came to Pittsburgh. Before he got hurt, Miles Killebrew was obviously the star special teamer for this team. Like he's been able to find guys and use guys in very interesting ways to allow them to kind of shine in that side of the ball, in that part of
Mhm.
the game. But the overall special teams value, especially the return game for this team, it's been a little iffy, I would say.
Yeah.
So maybe if anything, maybe that's where Crossman can help. But I don't know much about him, to be honest with you. I know he was with the Dolphins for a while, most recently. But yeah, he could be an upgrade, he could be a downgrade. With special teams, it honestly is pretty high variance anyway. So as long as you're
Yeah.
not the worst, you're probably okay. And you still got Chris Boswell kicking the football for you. So I'm feeling pretty okay about that.
Yeah, I feel quite certain that Danny Smith was not the secret sauce to Chris Boswell's success, so I feel all right
Beyond
about
maybe
this
helping him
generally.
through that rough spot he had in like 2018, like
Yeah.
maybe that, but beyond that, I would say it's still mostly just Chris Boswell being really damn good at kicking the ball. That's probably what
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's generally how I feel about it as well.
Yeah.
Changing gears
Mhm.
to the Senior Bowl, and you talked
Yes.
about maybe the next quarterback is a college quarterback.
Maybe.
Um, there are some other standouts at different positions. The Senior Bowl wasn't exactly loaded at quarterback this year.
Yeah.
Um, the 6 quarterbacks that were there, Garrett Nussmeier of LSU, who won the Senior Bowl MVP,
Mhm.
and I'm, like, kind of high on, similar we can have the conversation. Taylon Green from Arkansas, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, Luke Altmaier from Illinois, Cole Payton from North Dakota State, and Diego Pavia, who measured in at a whopping 5'9" and 7/8 at Vanderbilt, from Vanderbilt. Anyone grab your attention from that group? I mean, like, following along from the Senior Bowl, and even if it's beforehand, you have thoughts from their season or whatever, anything from that group, because I feel like we're just mostly looking at the quarterback position at this point so early in draft season.
Yeah, I mean, so I've started my quarterback evaluations. I've only gotten 4 guys into it, and only one of them was on the Senior Bowl roster because, a lot of the top guys just weren't there, and there's not many
Yeah,
top guys to speak of anyway, frankly.
no.
That's just kind of where this class is at. But I want to start with Cole Payton out of NDSU because he's a guy that is obviously coming from an FCS program, is despite it being essentially as close to an FBS program as it gets at the FCS level with North Dakota
Mhm.
State. He's obviously, there's a little bit of fog of war with him because of the talent that that team has and playing against FCS opponents primarily. But I will tell you, I ended up with like a 3rd round grade on him. I think he is firmly
Really?
draftable on day 2. It's a lot of just the tools, like the
Mhm,
physical tools, the leftiness of it throws people off. I know that's just what it is. He is a lefty, but the arm is there, the running is certainly there. He's well built for the position. He has the NFL size and just physical traits. It's just how much can you refine his mechanics that are definitely a little bit off. He's certainly erratic in the pocket at times because of that. I think his ability to scramble, he knows that he can get out of trouble, so he tends to do it maybe
mhm.
before he has to, honestly,
Yeah.
which is something that a lot of guys with his skill set tend to have issues with. But all the physical traits are there, and in a class where there just isn't many guys who hit the thresholds that a lot of guys are looking for from a size or arm talent or whatever you want to look at threshold, there's you take a chance on a guy like this in a class like this, I think. Very not very dissimilar to like a Malik Willis a few years ago, right? Where he
Mhm.
goes in the 3rd round because a lot of refinement, a lot of issues with his game, but the physical traits are there and you hope you can figure it out. And hey, he's about to get paid probably $30+ million a year as a free agent. So maybe if you're a team that is desperate for someone to develop a quarterback because your starter is on his way out, he's probably, at least of the guys I've watched so far, probably the guy that I would take a chance on first.
Yeah, I can't claim to have a lot of Cole Payton knowledge, but to your general point of, like, this class, and it's kind of for Fernando Mendoza, and then what? I'm higher on Ty Simpson than most.
I have finished my evaluation on Ty, so I can talk
Okay.
about that a little bit, but obviously focusing on the Senior Bowl guys. Peyton's
Yeah,
the one I've watched from
we'll get to those thoughts then.
yeah.
From the Senior Bowl group, I don't think Taylon Green is an NFL quarterback. I also think he's 6'6" and a really awesome runner, and, like, so there's some tools. If you're taking a late round swing, I'm not, like, super interested in it, but I whatever. Garrett Nussmeier is the one that interests me, like, a little bit more in the same vein as Quinn Ewers interests me last year before the
Mhm.
draft. And he ended up completely like falling into the 7th round.
Yep.
I think it was 6th, 7th.
There's
Uh,
7. Yeah.
he was hurt all year and he had a core injury that really affected his velocity. He doesn't have like an A plus arm when healthy, but it was, down in D plus levels for most of the year. Um, as a decision maker, his junior tape has a lot of impressive throws. He can do some of the off platform stuff that I like. I think he throws with pretty decent anticipation. And then every once in a while, once, twice, 3 times a game, he'll just not see a safety, not see a dropping corner, not see a linebacker, and it's a turnover the other way. Is that something you can refine out of his game? We didn't really get an answer to that because, again, he was hurt like all his senior year. So for him to be the Senior Bowl MVP and kind of, from all accounts, have a pretty decent showing in Mobile, that's promising to me, right? Like, okay, you're getting a little healthy again. The arm looks a little more lively, and maybe we can go from there and see what it looks like when he throws at the combine. Again, this is a round 4 flyer. Like, I don't have a grade on him yet or anything.
Yeah, I don't
But
either,
take
but
2, 3, potentially take a flyer on it.
yeah, like, the problem with Nussmeier, and, like, I haven't watched his tape yet, and I plan on what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to watch the tape that I think he was healthiest for this past year, which I believe was Florida, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
is kinda the one that looked like the most like him, and then I'm gonna watch a couple games from last year as well to kinda get a full eval because I do think that's fair for his case because of the injury issues with
Mhm.
him. But I did watch some of him last year because I wasn't sure yet at the time quarterbacks whether he would declare or not, and
Yeah.
for me, just he landed in this weird territory of a guy that is clearly a smaller quarterback, of an impressive arm. He has an okay. He's like Baker
Mhm.
Mayfield sometimes. And when you play like Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield and you don't have Baker Mayfield's scrambling ability and you don't have his arm strength, you tend to just not be good a lot of the time. I think he does have to, and frankly, like, and you saw clearly, like something was
Mhm.
weird with him that about down the stretch wasn't really working, right? And
Yeah.
I do worry that some of that is just part of his game. Like he is a gunslinger who doesn't have the gunslinger traits, and that
Yeah.
rarely works, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying he shouldn't get a chance somewhere, but I do think that it's just a pretty high risk, right? Because guys with his
Mhm.
profile just generally don't work out. So I am interested though to go back and fully eval him though.
And we've seen with a guy like Baker, even when you're a little bit of a smaller guy and you play a little more recklessly, even though Nussmeier isn't kind of like, I'm gonna try to run over a linebacker.
No, he
When you
doesn't do
do get
that, but
up, yeah, but when you do get dinged up trying to play that way where you're gonna throw into tight windows and you're gonna, if something's a little bit off, we see Baker's play fall off. Like, that's happened in multiple
Mhm.
different seasons.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Nussmeier would even get to the high ends of Baker.
Right.
I wouldn't think so. So he's the one that I have circled as, like, I'll keep an eye on it.
Mhm.
I like Altmaier as, like, a lot of these guys are just good college quarterbacks that aren't
Yeah,
don't have NFL
they're
traits.
backups, man, like, Altmaier,
Yeah,
I know some
yeah.
people like him a little bit, I just again, the tools just and I don't wanna harp on the tools too much because there's so many people who are gonna be like,
No,
"I
it
mean,
matters so
if
much
but if
though.
the if the tape is good, the tape" is like, yeah, but you have to look at how are these guys going to win at the NFL level? Are they
Mhm,
gonna be able to win in the same ways? And a lot of the time, the answer is no. Because even if you look at, like, everyone wants to point at Brock Purdy. I'm like, yes, does
yeah,
Purdy have a below average NFL arm? Absolutely. Does he have the ability to fit throws in the tight windows off of his arm talent alone? No. But he has developed just an unbelievable sense of how to play in that offense. He's developed all the stuff up here that you need to develop to have the skill set that he has work in the NFL. And at the end of the day, he
mhm,
also has physical tools. Like he can run around, he can scramble, he can do this. Like he's not immobile. And a lot of these guys that people were trying to say, like, oh, these guys could end up being stars, like they can't move well enough. Like if you're not
yeah.
going to have a solid arm or better, if you're not going to have elite accuracy or something close to that, you have to be able to move and make plays out of structure. And a lot of these guys just can't. And that's the case with a guy like Luke Altmaier. It's like, what does he really offer you as a ceiling?
It's the Kenny to me, it's the Kenny Pickett conversation. It's
And
how did
even
he
Kenny could
win?
move a little bit,
Yeah, and
and he
Kenny
still
could
wasn't
move,
enough. Yeah.
but to your point of, like, how do they win in college? Kenny won with, like, arm strength and athleticism because he was 24 and
Yeah.
his mobility, and he was able to get out of the pocket whenever he wanted to, and he was able to make some, like, off-platform throws, and, like, some of that showed up every once in a while, but he wasn't just, like, dissecting
Yeah.
defenses. He wasn't doing it in the ways you need to be a high level quarterback, well, when the traits aren't really there, right? Like
Yeah.
Brock Purdy has ridiculous anticipation. To me, that's a
Mhm.
tool. Like
Yeah, it is.
it's
Yeah.
not a physical tool, but like that is a useful tool to his skill set as a quarterback. And if you're winning in the way like Altmaier is somebody who kind of wins in a Kenny Pickett way, where it's a little bit scrambly and creation in the back, in the backfield, and he gets it done that way, but he's an older college quarterback who's like thrown for a bunch of yards and everything. But I don't see any of those tools translating. So I don't think this is a particularly intriguing Senior Bowl crop. I don't think it's a particularly intriguing crop beyond Mendoza. Do we have another franchise quarterback in this class beyond
I
Mendoza?
mean, I do think, and like this is where we can talk about the Ty Simpson of it all.
Mhm.
I do think he has the physical traits to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. From
I
a
agree.
throwing perspective, from an athletic perspective, I have a late first, early second round grade on him right now because he's a quarterback that bumps him up a little bit just naturally because of where I would take
Mhm.
him. I think he's the type of guy that if you are a team that has a starter in place, right? And this is the key thing. You have a starter that you are comfortable with who you know is on his way out, whether it's
Mhm.
because he's going to be too expensive because he's like a mid-tier starter but not someone you want to pay, whether it's because of an age thing, whether it's because of a regression thing, whatever it is, right? He is a guy that I would look to target because I think if he has a year in an NFL system and an NFL weight room, especially because he needs to add some weight, frankly, he's a smaller
Mhm.
guy.
Oh yeah.
I do think you could get something here because I think there's two reasons for it. One is he will attack the middle of the field fearlessly.
Love
He
it.
the one thing that he has over every other quarterback in this class, without a doubt, so far that I've watched, as even just seen, is he will look for and target the middle of the field at a rate that most guys just don't. And in the
Mhm.
NFL, you have to be able to do that. If you want to be a successful quarterback long term in the NFL, you cannot just rely on throws outside the numbers down the field. You have to be able to target the middle of the field. You just have to. And he already shows one, the ability to process in that part of the field pretty well, and
Mhm.
his willingness to just rip throws in that part of the field. Like that is what's going to get him in the door, in my opinion, to a lot of teams with the idea of him being a future starter. Now, the accuracy is spotty at times, to say the least. I
Mhm.
think sometimes he gets himself into way too much trouble as a scrambler, and
Yep.
he doesn't hold on to the football. You
Yep.
can't have those combination of things stick around if you wanna last in the league. Like, you're just not
Mhm.
gonna last long. But I do think the physical traits are there, and there's enough tape on him to suggest that he understands the game. I think it's just coaching the other things out of him a little bit. And the under pressure stuff, just gonna be honest with you, doesn't get a lot worse in this class. Like, when he's under
Yeah.
pressure, it gets ugly real fast. And unfortunately, in the NFL, you're gonna get under pressure a lot. So he does have to
Mhm.
work on that. But that's why, again, I think he has to go somewhere that he doesn't have to play much as a rookie, hopefully.
I watched a ton of Ty Simpson this year
Mhm,
and like rewatched a lot of his games and wrote almost every game. I wrote a weekly like grading Ty Simpson piece.
mhm.
Um, I really love the attacking the middle of the field stuff that you brought up. I think this might be a Simpson apologist thing. He'll throw it under pressure for sure, and sometimes with like serious accuracy. Like some of the best throws he made all year were like under pressure and whatnot. I think the decision making, what you bring up, is absolutely the case. Um, they lost that Florida State game in week 1, and he was seeing it, and then he'd pat it, and then he'd throw it, and the window was
Yep,
gone.
yep,
And then later in the season, he started like ripping those. And then there became some games when he realized we have the 131st ranked rushing success rate in the country, and I gotta like create a lot here.
yeah,
So I think that led to, and again, this is like a very Ty Simpson friendly explanation. I do think that led to a lot of like, I'm gonna hold on to this. I gotta try to get out of the pocket here. I can't throw this away. I can't waste this down because there's no shot we're getting 4 yards on second down, right? Like, I think that seeped into his decision making, and then the fumbles were just a problem. Um, but there are flaws. Absolutely, there are flaws. Like that is a very friendly, positive glass half full read on a guy who played 15 games in college. Like,
yeah. He also does have a lack of experience despite his age.
yeah,
And I think that's part of why he came out this year is because he knew that like he's gonna be an older prospect kind of no matter what to some degree, especially if he
yeah,
waits another year. And in a class like this, again,
mhm,
like there's maybe, and again, I haven't watched his tape yet. I do not know where I stand on this player, but he clearly doesn't want to go to the NFL. Trinidad Chambliss is the only guy that I think has a chance to even compete with him for quarterback too, from
yeah.
what I've seen. And again, he doesn't want to play in the NFL. He wants
No,
to play at Ole
he
Miss
wants to
desperately.
stay. Yeah,
Yeah, and we won't get a full answer on that, I think, for another week or 2 from what I understand, but, like, unless he comes out and is able to jump into this process quickly and get acclimated, like, Simpson's gonna probably be the second quarterback off the board. It makes sense for him to go this route, I think, as long as he ends up in a place where, again, hopefully, this is always the hope, it never usually works out this way, but maybe
yeah,
it will, is he doesn't have to play as a rookie. That
mhm,
he just gets to sit back, learn, work with quarterback coaches at the NFL level who can hopefully settle him down a little bit, and maybe just not being under fire for a while will help him,
yeah,
honestly. Like, because if it is a lot of the stuff that you talked about, which is totally possible, I think it's definitely part of the problem, right?
mhm,
Getting to just sit back and, like, watch the game be played at the NFL level and practice with it and see it live, like, that might be what he needs to do, frankly, so
I mean, I would love the Rams have 2 first round picks. Like, I would
yep,
love that.
they're the team that everyone talks about. I
Uh-huh.
would totally understand it. I think it'd make a
Yeah,
lot of sense for McVay. Targeting the middle of the field, obviously, is a huge part of that system. I think if he did have to come in and play for Stafford, even
yeah,
especially next year, he could at least do some of those things, even if they had to insulate him a little bit from some of the
mhm,
other stuff. It would be a really good fit. Now, whether they're ready to do that yet or not, in a class where, again, I don't know if anyone loves the quarterbacks beyond
yeah.
Mendoza, and some of them don't even love him. I don't know, but it would make sense schematically and from a, like, forward-thinking perspective, so
And pulling this back to the Steelers,
mhm.
I really don't want the Steelers to take Ty Simpson.
No,
I
that would be a disaster in my opinion because
yeah,
he would almost unless they bring back I don't even wanna say his name, unless Aaron Rodgers is on this team next year, which,
yeah.
he's gonna be probably,
It
unfortunately,
feels like
like
he's going to be,
but,
yeah.
like, unless he's on the team, in which case unless he gets hurt, he's certainly not coming out if he's on the team.
Mhm.
Even then, I just don't know if Simpson's the guy that I'd take the bet on right now with the
Yeah,
Steelers, like, especially when you might not be very good this year, even despite hiring McCarthy. You might just have a better chance at quarterback next year naturally where you
yeah,
pick. I just don't think it's time to bring a quarterback into this unit, so
No, it would be the Kenny Pickett situation again, in my opinion, where you're
Probably,
taking,
probably.
like, the
A more
best of
talented player, but it's
Yeah,
still,
just in terms of you're taking the best of a not very good class
yes, right.
in a spot when, like, a lot of other teams aren't going to, thrusting him into a starting role eventually that year, and I think it would be, like you said, a really bad recipe.
Yeah.
Other Senior Bowl standouts, and, like, this is just names that are interesting, we don't even have to talk specifically about these players. Malachi Fields, the wide receiver from Notre Dame. This to me is an onboard into the Steelers probably need a wide receiver. It's never a bad thing to have another guy popping up in the first round conversation, even if that isn't specifically for you, if it could, like, drop somebody else towards you. How much have you said you're almost done with offense,
My
wide
initial there's
receiver?
guys I have to go back and
Yeah.
watch, but Fields is one
Mhm.
of the guys I did watch in my initial I watched
Okay.
17 receivers initially.
Mhm.
So he made it into that group. He currently, and again, there will be some he's 13 out of the receivers for me right now
Okay.
that I've
I thought you were
watched.
gonna say overall. I was
I
like,
have an early
whoa.
I have no, no, no.
Yeah.
He's a early day 3 player for me, for some
Mhm.
teams. So with receivers in particular, I tend to do like a role projection for them because I think it matters a lot with
Mhm.
especially the later on guys.
100%.
He just screams like sacrificial X or X receiver
Yeah.
because of the size, and you throw him some bombs sometimes because of the contested. You could throw him just some curls on you where you can body guys out, stuff like that. Like he's going to
Yeah.
be a role player at the NFL level, but probably a good one. Continually do what he's done at the college level and just body guys down the field. Like I don't view him as a guy that's going to get a
Mhm.
ton of volume ever. But if you
No.
don't have you don't plan on getting one that's a premium one, if you want to just fill that role for pretty cheap, fourth round pick on Malachi Fields is definitely not the worst way you could do it, probably.
Yeah, and I've seen him creeping up into, like, early day 2
Like
conversations
a
even.
little too
I
I
think
just
I
don't
saw him in
know
the
if he has
back of
the
the
juice.
first. I
Yeah.
don't see it. I
I
don't
don't see
see
the route
the
running and the juice. I don't
no.
know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I think he's
again
a bit lumbering for
mhm,
that type of role, but,
right.
like, again, in terms of if you need an X because your number 1 guy is kind of a slot guy or something, like, I don't know. The Steelers could use a big body, so maybe
Yeah,
somebody.
'cause X, he's not. Like, he really
Yeah.
is, in my opinion. So,
He's better in kind of a Z role, in my opinion, like
yeah,
overs and get him
for sure.
moving and yards after the catch and everything like that. A couple other names, you can throw out anyone else that's jumped out to
Mhm.
you. Max Anacher, I don't even know how to
I think it's
say it.
Ian
Arizona State.
Archer's I think it's Ian Archer or Ian Archer, one of the 2. I'd have to double check that, but yeah, he's an
Offensive
interesting
tackle,
guy.
Arizona State.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steelers, like, maybe need a tackle. Kyle Lewis, linebacker at Pitt. Interesting because it's Pitt, and the Steelers could use a linebacker because I would take a dead cap hit on Patrick Queen. And then Lee Hunter,
Yeah,
defensive tackle,
tomorrow.
Texas Tech. Just keep building up that thing. I think he's awesome. I think they have no shot at him if they don't take him in the first round. So
No, yeah, he's,
these are just some
you
names
know
that had come out. Anyone jump out to you?
So I haven't gotten to the defensive guys yet. That'll be next week is when I'm starting that. So I can't say
Mhm.
much about beyond the Senior Bowl stuff for Kyle Lewis and Lee Hunter and guys like that. I know that Hunter
Mhm.
just tore it up and just looked pretty
Yeah,
unstoppable for
he's
most.
awesome.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
seems pretty sick. I'm sure I'm gonna like him a lot. So I can't wait to watch
Yeah.
that. Kyle Lewis, the only thing I know about him so far, obviously Pitt, and also had maybe the best linebacker coverage drill in the history of the sport, apparently, from what everyone was telling me. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
cool,
Yeah.
hopefully that doesn't, I'm gonna be like, "Why didn't you do that?" Maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
but we'll see. So he's an interesting guy. Ian Otcher, he's someone that I've gotten to this week. He was offensive tackle 8 for me, on initial watch,
Okay.
mostly because I think he's a guy now, granted, I'll take him probably higher than some of the guys right ahead of him if I'm looking for, like, trying to hit the lottery ticket upside, probably,
Mhm.
because that's what it is with
Yeah.
him, is he is a big, athletic, still newer to the position because he played soccer growing up, as far as I understand, is kinda his background. He's still new to the position overall, and for him to be still as effective as he was last year, especially at his size, his athleticism, and his relative inexperience, maybe he doesn't play as a rookie, but year 2, year 3, you could be looking at, like, a legit franchise tackle. So, I have a day 2 grade on him from a pure tape grade. Would I take him early on day 2? Maybe at the back end of round 1 if I don't need someone to play, like, right this second, maybe. Like, just because again, you're
Yeah.
banking on, like, guys that move like him and look like him at his size just don't come around all that often, so I'm not surprised he looks really good at the Senior Bowl.
And again, guys worth bringing up because of positional needs and
Yes,
whatnot.
yeah.
The
Certainly
Senior Bowl
defense.
is the
Yeah,
first step in a long pre-draft process that we'll dive into it much deeper with
as you can as
mocks
well.
and
Yeah,
different things as we get closer. This brings us to a couple of rankings. We want
yeah,
to do two different rankings. This one we're calling head coach hierarchy, ranking the 10 head coach hires of the offseason, just flat ranking the hire, right? And
mhm,
again, a Steelers centric exercise insofar as where does this Mike McCarthy hire actually
yeah.
like when we're looking at what the other teams ended up with, who else came off the board in this cycle? Um, I'll give you the do you want to just go back and forth and rank this thing that way? You go one, I go two, you go three.
Yeah, we can definitely do it that way if you want, then
Okay.
we can kinda just go we build our list that way, so it's not like
Yeah,
I have 1, you
let's
have
build our
1.
list that way, and we can talk
Yeah.
about if we're different,
You know,
if we differ
we can
anywhere.
certainly try to fight about it if we have to, I have
Yeah,
no problem doing that. But yeah, do you wanna kick us off or do you want me to kick I feel like we're both gonna maybe have the same answer, but I'm not sure.
I think we have a different answer based
Okay,
on you saying that. I'll go
okay,
first then.
okay.
I I I went Kevin Stefanski,
Oh, man, wow, okay, okay.
which I think differs
Um,
from you quite a bit.
yeah, I don't hate it, but
Yeah,
I can we can get into it, but that's interesting that you go with him at 1. I will say, I'm curious to see what your thought process is there.
I think a lot of it is I'm so down on everything the Browns did for a really long time.
That's fair. You can't really
And
argue with
this
that.
guy, like, made a lot of chicken salad out of that
You know what?
situation there. I think he's a good play caller. I think, like, even in the years when he had to, like, break away from his traditional kind of Shanahan-ish roots to go more spread for Deshaun Watson, obviously, it didn't work. Deshaun Watson was awful,
Terrible.
but I don't think he like, I think that he was able to do it as a play caller,
Yeah, he was able
and
to
building an
adapt to it, yeah.
offense. He has head coaching experience, which I think is valuable compared to the guy I think you have number 1,
Mhm.
um, who is an awesome play caller, if I'm guessing right, but you just don't know. Like, to me,
Right.
there is a wild card aspect of it, and how many retreads, like, go on to win a Super Bowl and whatever, and I'll hear all of those arguments. But how many of them had their first job in Cleveland and really survived a disastrous situation and the worst trade in pro sports history up there, right? Like
It's
we're
yeah,
talking, um, you
optics
know,
on the field, off the whole every part of it.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's that or the Luca trade really now, like at least modern
That
this
we have to
century.
let that one marinate for a little longer at least, so you gotta give 'em a
Yeah,
little bit more time. Doesn't help hurt that they got Cooper Flags, so
it
that's
doesn't
fine.
hurt that they
But
got Cooper
anyway,
Flag.
yeah.
Um, So regardless, I
Mhm.
just think he did a really good job, and I think he's a good coach. And I felt like every time the Steelers played against the Browns with Stefanski, like he had a good game plan. And I rarely ever, Dylan Gabriel games aside, felt like, oh, this is a sure thing for the Steelers. So I have Stefanski at number 1, but I'll hear arguments to the contrary.
Yeah, so my problem with it is not so much that I think he's a bad coach at all or that it's a bad hire. I think it's just kind of like when I'm looking at this, like for my rankings, especially the process and what you're trying to accomplish matters a
Okay.
lot to me with that. And I think
Yeah.
getting Stefanski is going to help get the Falcons in the right direction offensively and maybe help them find, hopefully, whether it's Penix or not, a future quarterback for that group.
Mhm.
I don't know if I think Stefanski is going to lead them to anything significant beyond maybe a couple playoff appearances, right?
No.
And I think
Yeah.
the upside of that hire is just a little bit lower than the one I am going to go with is our I guess our number 2 in this case,
Mhm.
Clint Kubiak to the Raiders. This one
He's
just
my number
makes
2.
yeah, it just makes too much sense to me for a team that's about to get a young quarterback in here. We assume if with Fernando Mendoza number 1, who has a skill set that I think meshes pretty well with Kubiak. I do think he needs to get better
Mhm.
throwing over the middle of the field, but other than that, I think a lot of what he does will fit pretty well. And yes, the Raiders have been a disaster, and picking their head coach hire is my personal top head coach hire is, not probably going to work out as well as I'd like it to, realistically, if I'm playing the odds.
Yeah.
But he was my top coaching candidate. And I think the Raiders were the team that clearly showed the most interest in him, and I think should have showed the most interest in him given the situation they're coming out of. And I do think there's pieces there. Like Ashton Genty still is a running back there that I think is really talented, just didn't get to do a lot as a rookie because of the situation. The offensive line should be better simply by having an actual offensive line coach instead of whatever Brendan Carroll was doing, frankly.
Mhm.
And hopefully getting Colton Miller back healthy also too. The receiving core is certainly interesting and they need to add to it, but I do think there's some good skill sets in there. And I want to see especially somebody like Jack Besh get more run in that receiving group. And you
Yeah.
also have Brock Bowers, which is also pretty freaking cool. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
That guy is gonna be probably
Doesn't
really
suck.
awesome for them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, I think there's just enough pieces there where if they can just make the right decisions for once about literally anything, including this coaching hire, this could work out really well for the Raiders. And I think he was the best. Actually, like if you're looking at it from a new head coach, someone who you can bring in to try to rebuild a culture and figure stuff out, was the best option on the market, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I agree. When we did our candidates ranking, I had him
yeah,
number 1 for the Steelers.
yeah,
And I think Stefanski was maybe off the board then.
he already
I
was.
wouldn't
Yeah, I think with the Falcons.
Yeah, if I was the Steelers, I also just like wouldn't have hired the former Browns
Yeah,
coach. I just
it's
yeah,
the
there's
optics of that
optic
stuff.
stuff and
Yeah,
whatnot that's terrible about that. I love the upside of Kubiak. I think he's probably a better play caller, at least like the past 2 years. How can you
yeah,
not be
more
blown
innovative
away?
at least, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, more.
Um,
Yeah,
there is just I don't know.
you never know.
There's head coaching stuff that you just don't know, right?
Yeah,
Like you
you
just
don't
don't
know.
know if it's going to work out. And I've already seen Stefanski do it in Cleveland, and I think
Yeah,
that's on expert mode. Number 3, Jesse Minter is
yeah,
my number 3. Is that
yeah,
where you had him?
yeah. He would have been my next guy off the board here. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Um, yeah, I think he's like an awesome schemer, a get more out of less kind of guy on the defensive side of the ball. That's so perfect for Baltimore. And yeah, he's a Harbaugh guy, and that makes it like a little bit weird, but that's an organization that can handle a little bit of weirdness and it'll be fine. Um, I think he's gonna hire good offensive coordinators and like he already did. And I wanted Jesse Minter pretty bad, and I feel pretty bad that he ended up in Baltimore. I think he's gonna be awesome.
this is one of those ones that could hurt for a while,
Yeah.
right? Like especially if the
Yep.
McCarthy situation goes as we all expect it to go. I just feel like this will hurt for the Steelers. Not
Mhm.
saying that he definitely had to be the hire. There's other guys that were up there too, but Minter is a phenomenal defensive coach. I think he's going to do a really good job with that defense that clearly needs a reset from a schematic standpoint and getting back to basics, frankly, a little bit with that group. And I think he's going to be able to do that. He's already done it in this city already, frankly.
Mhm.
He's part of doing that back whenever he was with this team before. So I think that one's just kind of a home run hire if you're a Ravens fan, unfortunately for us.
Yeah.
And you just have to hope that somehow they mess up the offense, which when you have an MVP quarterback, as long as he's healthy, you're probably going to be just all right. So,
Yeah.
not going to really have my hopes up that that's going to be the case. So.
Literally the only reason I didn't have him over Kubiak, and even over Stefanski for that matter, is offensive versus defensive.
Yeah, the defensive
And
head coach thing is just it's tough for some people, and I get it. So,
yeah, like it maybe it's dumb. And he's like the type of scheme defensive guy where I think it's like almost
yeah,
equally as valuable, right? Like as having an offensive play caller.
he's a
The
rare
theory,
build in that
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
the theory obviously going that if you have the offensive play caller, you're not going to lose him. But I would just, offense is stickier than defense. It's statistically proven
Yeah.
forever. And so I think you have a better chance of having a top 10 offense every year if you have Sean McVay than if you have having a top 10 defense every year with Mike McDonald.
Right.
Even if Mike McDonald is awesome and just beat Sean McVay to go to the Super Bowl. With
Right.
Clint Kubiak on his staff,
This is true.
importantly.
This is true.
So your next pick.
So if we're going number 4 here from the guys that are left, this one's tough because like there's an easy name that I could throw out there and just say, oh yeah, like this is experienced head coach that has done a lot, just kind of past him a little bit, and I'm wondering if he'll maybe be the
Okay.
next pick next. But and this one surprises me just because I didn't expect him to get a job this cycle and also to like it as much as I do. I think, but I'm gonna go Robert Saleh to the Titans here at 4.
I
I
thought you might.
think I think defensively, like if he can once again did with the Jets, and this time, and I already think he's done a good first chance at doing this by bringing Brian Dable as his offensive coordinator. if Dable
Mhm.
can get Ward up to speed and make him a valuable starting quarterback, did for the Jets, and bring in more talent through the draft and free agency and build this defense up into a top 5, top 10 unit, the Titans could be back pretty quickly. Like, I think they're a year
Yeah.
away from really being able to do that because you have to get the talent this year, and then you probably have to add even more to make a run. But like, I do think he did a relatively good job with the Jets before the Aaron Rodgers mess happened and the Zach Wilson of it all messed everything up. Like, he has a quarterback in place that people already believe in to some degree and has shown flashes of talent at the NFL level. He didn't have that with the Jets. That he deserved a second chance, and this is as pretty good a chance as you're going to get in this cycle because again, you already have somebody that the previous regime brought in a quarterback that can be your franchise quarterback, hopefully. Now, if Ward doesn't work out, you end up running the same risk of what happened with the Jets, where they're just looking for a quarterback again. Are they going to scramble? Is he going to take his hands off the wheel like he kind of did with the Jets near this? Aaron, save us,
Yeah.
please, maybe. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it doesn't, I think this could end up being a really solid hire, even if maybe he isn't the guy to take them all the way back to prominence, like Vrabel had them close to being. He's on the right track for the first time in a while.
And I have him number 5 on the list, so, like, right behind John Harbaugh.
Okay.
And I think
That's the guy.
yeah. And I think things got very stale there, and I
Yep.
do have questions about how it's gonna go in
Yeah.
New York with the Giants hiring Harbaugh. But I think just institutional, like, he's just gonna bring stability that's gonna
Yes.
be really
And
valuable,
that team
and that would be the
desperately needs
case wherever he went, but the Giants desperately needed
yeah.
that, as you mentioned. I It's so hard because he was a special teams guy, right? Like, it's not like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this side of the ball is fixed."
No,
And
he
I
has a
think that
true
makes it difficult
CEO
with
type,
Harbaugh.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think as far as the true CEO goes, he's really the best there is, and he's gonna be willing to play to the strengths of his roster to maximize them, and we've seen that with coordinator hires and, the Lamar Jackson experiment of it all, and, like, I think he deserves so much credit for that, even though, yes, they lost in the playoffs. They lost a lot of those losses were to Patrick Mahomes, like,
Yeah, which
that's gonna happen, man.
yeah, name me who
Yeah.
hasn't been doing that most of the
Yeah,
last,
like,
8 years.
what are you really gonna do about it? So, I think we're pretty much in lockstep because I had Saleh right after, and I
Yeah.
think the defensive side of the ball is gonna be pretty taken care of there, even though he's not. He's like a guys over X's and O's kinda guy, like,
Mhm.
but I still think he gets his defenses to play really well and develops talent really well on that side of the ball,
I
so,
like the Denard Wilson,
I'm happy with him.
hire for a defensive coordinator. I'm curious who the
Mhm.
OC is gonna be because I don't think they've decided that yet as far as I know, who the OC is gonna be there. Maybe I missed it, but if not, I do like the Wilson hire for DC at least.
So then who do you have next after Harbaugh at number 5 on our list?
So this would be
No
6
Mike McCarthy
total,
yet.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
this will be 6.
On our list
This
at
will be
least, yeah.
6.
So the next
Yeah.
guy that I would throw out there, and this one's tough because I think this could work out better than we're giving it credit for on this list at least, but it's just the process to get here was just really strange, and it's Joe
Yeah.
Brady for the Bills.
Mhm.
I just I don't dislike him as a candidate necessarily, but like you fire Sean McDermott, which I've been a proponent of for actually a while because I just felt like he wasn't doing enough on the defensive
Yeah.
side of the ball schematically to continue to keep being in position to get this team to where it needed to go. With a quarterback like Josh Allen, I just felt like you needed to bring in someone else, right?
Mhm.
Now, once you make that decision and then you throw the entire coaching staff under the bus essentially and saying, "Well, it's not Bean's fault. It's not Brandon Bean, the GM's fault. He
Yeah.
didn't want this or that, or he didn't want to do this." Like, okay, whatever. I don't think he should be around anymore either. But beside the point, okay, he won this power struggle if there was one, whatever. Okay.
Mhm.
But then you just promote the offensive coordinator of the team that you just said, like, yeah, was it good enough? We need to do things differently. Let's bring in the guy that is here already.
Mhm.
I just like if Joe Brady was hired by like the Cardinals, I'd probably have it a little bit higher because I'd be like, okay, they're trying to do something with the
Mhm.
offense. Like he's done some cool stuff with the run game, especially, blah, 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 whatever. I can get behind a little bit more. But this just feels like, man, if he doesn't win like 13 games next year
Yeah.
and goes far in the playoffs, if not go
It
to the
could get
Super Bowl, like,
ugly.
yeah, are people gonna be like, what are we doing? What is the
Yeah.
point of this? Like if they win, God forbid they win like 8 games next year. I mean, the franchise might explode.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the
It
Bills are at this point. It's just a tough one to, like, balance where, like, I don't hate Joe Brady, but almost like the process to get here, I don't know.
and yet, we still have it ranked above the Steelers hiring Mike McCarthy.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yep, and I totally agree with you on that. I think it's a better hire. Keep Josh Allen happy, man. If that's what it
It
is,
could totally work. That's why I have
yeah,
it still ranked here.
this
Is
will
it
be the difference between this ranking and the next ranking, of which I won't spoil yet, but the next kind of ranking with these head coaches, that is probably my biggest difference, that the Bills on where they rank on it, because I had him at number 6 as well. Number 7, I have Mike LaFleur to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Wasn't particularly great. He was the play caller for the Jets, correct?
Yeah, and that team obviously was just not good.
Yeah, not good and like a lot of problems. But his first foray into being the play calling OC didn't go great. And then you go back to Sean McVay and okay, you're not the play caller, but like obviously you're integral. But Shieldhouse is getting all this love and your passing game coordinator. It seemed odd. Like I just didn't feel like he was going to get a job in this
Yeah, I
cycle.
didn't either. Yeah.
But still, I would take the swing on like a McVay
Yeah,
tree offensive guy. Like,
right.
show me the McVay tree offensive hire that has been a disaster. Like, you can say Zach Taylor and he went to a Super Bowl. They do a good job, man. Like, that's a good
Generally, they
offense.
figure it out. Yeah,
They figure it out. Like, they know what they're doing. So
yeah.
I would have rather the Steelers taken that swing, even though I
Mhm.
would have had questions about it,
Yeah.
than the Steelers doing what they did. So I have Michael LaFleur at 7.
That's where he would have came off the board next for me too. I think it's a fine hire. It's a swing on a guy that is coming from a proven successful
Mhm.
program who didn't really get a great first shot at play calling because he did it for the Jets, which generally, again, like if
Yeah.
you're an NFL coach, I'm certainly not the person you should be listening to for advice. But generally, if your option is to either coach for the Jets or not coach for the Jets, I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna do the second one most of the
Yeah.
time if I have now,
That
if you
would
don't
be
have
my call as
options,
well.
yeah, do whatever you want, who cares? Maybe you're the one who makes it work, and then you're really cool, right? But probably not. Look at Aaron Glenn right now. We all liked Aaron Glenn. I don't know if anyone likes Aaron Glenn right now except for Aaron
Yeah.
Glenn. So it's tough, but no, I don't have a problem with the hire overall. And then this is the decision for me. We
Okay.
haven't there's one more first time head coach on this list, or second. Well, actually, technically two, but one that's older, so I don't know if I care as much about him being
Yeah.
a first time head coach. I'm gonna put Jeff Hafley here at 8.
Oh, wow.
I am because I think again, at least in his case, and I have some reservations about it as someone who's covering the Dolphins full time now for the most part. I
Mhm.
do have reservations about it, but I think the process to get here, where you bring in John Eric Sullivan from the Green Bay Packers to be your GM, he's coming from a program that has been as good as anyone at building a roster through the draft that is sustainable and can lead to success. He's been in that building. He knows what that looks like, what it takes. That's been the Dolphins' biggest problem as a franchise, really, for the past decade, is getting guys on the roster who are cost controlled and can actually help you win
Yeah.
and keep them on the roster. And they've not been able to do that for a long time. Him being the guy that's in charge of doing that, while bringing in a guy that he's familiar with, obviously
Mhm.
from being with the Packers, who is a more defensive minded coach, obviously, who has at least head coaching experience. It was at Boston College and it wasn't particularly successful, but it's also Boston College. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
yeah. And he at least I think can bring some more juice to the defense in the meantime as a play caller for them. I think keeping Slowick around as the offensive coordinator was actually kind of a good move because he already knows the roster. He can help you maybe add things to it or at least do things a little bit differently than McDaniel was doing. He doesn't have the problem of like building an offense solely based around the ability for the quarterback who can't throw the ball to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Like that's helpful too. The quarterback situation is going to impact a lot of this, like it does with any, especially defensive head coach who really relies on the quarterback play to kind of make his offense worth like actually doing anything with, opposed to the
Mhm.
defense. I think there's a pathway for this to work out well, and that's why I ultimately had to put it over the two that we're going to talk about last year. And I'm assuming though that you're going to take our coach now at 9 ahead of the Browns situation, which we can then talk about.
And I would have taken him above Halfley because
I
I
get that. I get it.
Yeah, I was not really big
I don't
into
love
the half
Halfley,
league
but it's
thing.
like
Yeah,
I think
we're
the pathway is easier to imagine to me for it
yeah,
to
I agree with that, and again, that kind of tailors into, like, the next ranking and how we're, kind of splitting the logic a little bit on these 2 different things.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Mike McCarthy at number 9 here because he's not
yeah,
Todd Monken, right? Like,
yeah,
I
and he's not going to the Browns,
yeah, so
and
he's got those 2 things going for him. It's just again, we don't need to, like, do this again. It's just so
no,
uninspired, and that's why I wanted to do this
yeah,
ranking because, like, I feel like we're being pretty objective about this, and, like, I don't know how you have him higher than 7. I could have made the
yeah, you
case
can make an
starting at
argument for 7.
7, putting him above
Mhm.
LaFleur, Halfley, and Monken. I could not have made
Yes,
the case over Joe Brady. I could not have made the case over anyone else. And that's just such a bad spot to be in when you're like, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and that's the hire you made. It is honestly baffling to me. I'm not going to relitigate like all the reasons I don't like it.
yeah, we don't have
We
to,
don't have to
yeah,
do that, but like that was the purpose of this exercise is to like zoom out, not just we don't like it as Steelers fans and we have high expectations and all of these things. NFL wide, this is a bad decision.
it's the process of it
Yeah.
too, like, that's the thing that I wanna stress with this is, like, if I'm ranking these 10 coaches as head coaches and their ability to be a head coach, he is not 9
Yeah.
on the list. Right? He's probably in the top 5 of this list, realistically. If you're just banking on, like, his ability, his track record as a head coach,
Mhm.
like, to win games and to do you can make an argument for him to be clearly in the top 5 of this list because he's done it at multiple spots now. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the reason the higher ranks 9 for me and would be maybe 8 for you, like you said, ahead of Halfway. That's not why. It's because of where this team currently is at, where they've been at for a decade, and where they need to ultimately get to if they want to stop being the same team they've been for a decade. And they did the one thing that could basically guarantee outside of like, yeah, you could hire like a Harbaugh or whatever, but like you're not going to do that because
Yeah.
obviously, like outside of him, like they hired the only other head coach candidate that was basically guaranteed to put you in a position to be in the same place you've been in for the past decade. That's why this higher ranks where it
Yeah.
does.
Literally no head coach in the NFL had a more similar resume to
Literally,
Mike Tomlin.
it's you could not do a better job of doing that.
It's unbelievable. Like last trip to the Super Bowl was the Super Bowl they played each other. So, um, yeah, just really bad and not just bad from a Steelers perspective, bad from an NFL perspective, and that's why I wanted to do that ranking. And we can take this next one a little quicker, but I wanted to separate these 2 things
Yes.
because I think it is 2 different questions, but it brings the
Yeah.
Steelers to a similar spot in both of them, at least for me. Um, Insta contender, I'm calling this one. Which new head coach has the best chance of reaching a Super Bowl in 2 years is the line I put it because Mike McDonald in his 2nd year, Mike Vrabel in his 1st year with the Patriots. And this is a unique situation, but proof that it can be done. Most head coaches that win a Super Bowl do it within the first 5 years at a new place. So, like, which of these guys has the best chance and which of these franchises has the best chance to turn it around to get to a Super Bowl within 2 years? Before we start this ranking, if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Still Curtain podcast, please subscribe to the Still Curtain podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts as well, and check out all the written content on stillcurtain.com, where Shane's great writing is, where Tommy Jagai's great writing is. You can check out fansided.com as well, where Mark Powell, who's typically on this show, has all of
Yep.
his great writing, and with some other audio and video people at the Super Bowl this week from Fansided, which you can also check out that content.
Yeah.
Mark is doing a lot more writing, and that's why he's not with us today. So
Yeah.
check out all of those things and make sure you subscribe to this great podcast and like all the episodes and comment and do all those great things so we can continue to build this audience and bring you even more content. All right, Shane, I went first for the last one. We don't have to belabor this maybe quite as much.
Mhm.
But on this, like, which team has the best chance of turning this around and being in the Super Bowl in 2 years? And I wanted to do this because the whole idea of hiring Mike McCarthy is that you're not going to go in the tank as a
Yeah.
franchise, right? You're
Yeah.
going to continue to be competitive every year. Art Rooney II says he doesn't see a reason to not compete to win as many games as you can every single season. I could name a lot of them. Most of them are the names of the best NFL quarterbacks. But I digress. That's the case for this. Where do the Steelers rank in terms of the best chance to make a Super Bowl within the next 2 years of the 10 teams that hired a new head coach? We're going to find out. Starting at number 1, is it the Pittsburgh Steelers?
No, real quick, we'll talk about them, and maybe I can save a lot of this conversation when we get to them because we're going to have them, I assume, last. But we didn't talk about the Monken hire too much but he would be number 10. It's a disaster. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but I just wanted to rank him officially. This is really a two-party question in this case. There's two options here that I think are the clear runaway favorites for this question. And I think it's honestly just which hire you think was better. And in our case, I thought that the Minner hire was better, so I'm going to go one pick here. They have an MVP quarterback. Yep, the Bills do as well, but Lamar is an MVP quarterback. They bring in a defensive mind to help the defense, which has been their biggest problem, especially in 2024. I would say they had the weird first half, second half split. Same thing happened this year, but the offense just wasn't able to help them the way they did in 2024. If the defense can get back to being a top 10 unit under Minter, and the offense, whoever it is that's going to be, which I believe it's Declan Doyle. Is that who's going to be coordinating the offense? Am I right? If he can do
Bears offensive coordinator under Ben Johnson.
If he can bring some of the stuff that Ben Johnson was doing, which I think fits Lamar very well, by the way, as a passer, especially. Like, if he can do a good enough job as the offensive coordinator for this team. And obviously Derrick Henry is still Derrick Henry, which until he's not, he is. It's just kind of the reality of it. I think we have to live with that. This team could be back to being the juggernaut that it was the past couple of years very quickly.
Totally agree. And I like that hire better than the Joe Brady hire. So I'll go for the Bills at number 2. You pretty much made the case.
They have Josh Allen.
They have Josh Allen, so that gives you the best chance of making the Super Bowl of this group of teams. So I think 1 and 2 was very easy. Number 3.
Yeah. This is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Because for the most part, a lot of these teams are pretty far away. You could argue the Steelers aren't, but also I'm going to base this off of upside partially too, not just like how good I think the team is currently. And I'll tell you what, Steelers are not making the Super Bowl.
No.
So it makes it really hard to rank them. Now they're going to rank ahead of a couple teams here for sure. In my opinion, we'll get to that. But I think if we're going for third here, it might be a little bit crazy to say, but like, do we think it's the Falcons? Like, if
I put the Raiders.
If the Raiders, I could understand too, but like, I just don't know if the Raiders roster is going to be complete in 2 years necessarily, is my thing.
I would have said the same thing about the Patriots.
True. I mean, they did spend a lot of money and they already have a quarterback in place. So that helps. I wanted to say maybe, like you said, the Raiders, but like if Mendoza isn't good as a rookie and then the second year they still have to develop a bunch of guys around him, that was tough. But like, I get it. I think I'm going to settle though. Man, do I want to? Now, if I'm playing the odds, maybe it is better to go with the Raiders at 3 than the Falcons because the odds are probably better that Mendoza can work out than Penix is at this point. So I think you probably convinced me on that one. It probably makes more sense to pick them.
That's my bet. And like, it's already pretty torn down. You're going to get a lot of premium picks. You already have some premium picks. You got Genty, like you mentioned, which, that's not a premium position, but he's a premium player and that matters. And we've seen situations before, Todd Gurley, chief among them, where top drafted running backs didn't do very well at the beginning. You get a coaching change and you take off. So the Raiders are who I had at number 3. At number 4, I put the Titans. It's a similar situation.
Yeah,
you got the quarterback
in
place, right? Yeah. Like you have a coach who can come in and presumably, like you're gonna think they can turn around the defensive side of the ball. The interior of that defensive line, I love already with Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. And I would rather have teams that have already kind of hit the bottom and are now kind of theoretically at least going up than the Steelers, who ultimately this whole argument is against it, like, which are plateaued at best. And the only real way to go from there is down unless you hit on a quarterback. And I see no pathway in the next 2 years for them to hit a quarterback, except, maybe next year's draft. And then you have a rookie. And I'm not going to bet on that. Obviously the Raiders, you're betting on a rookie and a second year guy, but I mean, we've seen that, right? We've seen Jaden Daniels get there as a rookie. Mendoza, I don't necessarily have in that tier, but
No.
either way, you have the quarterback, you have some pieces, and you're gonna get a bunch of premium picks to like turn over the roster. The thing I think the Steelers desperately need to do. So I have the Titans at number 4.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. They are gonna be one of the top teams for me next too, and I think actually I know I was talking about the Falcons. I think even though I don't necessarily believe in this quarterback as much as a lot of other people do, I think a lot of the things that worried me about him is still the case and will have to change. I'll probably go Giants here at 5
Yeah.
because I do think there's enough talent on that roster already, plus what they can still potentially bring in through the draft and free agency. Where if Harbaugh gets his coordinators right, which I already think he has with Denard Wilson, I think it's going to go really well. They have a ton of
Mhm.
talent up front. Secondary is young but still talented overall. I think they need another corner in there, which maybe they will get in this draft, honestly, at least at some point. Um, they could get good pretty quickly and get up to at least a baseline level this year and then try to go for it next year. If Jackson Dart, who I was talking about, if he can be the quarterback that a lot of people think he can be, then they will be in contention.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I had them as well. And Mike, essentially a lot of that ranking is I like Mendoza a little bit better than Ward, Ward a little bit better than Dart. So
Which
like that's
fair.
kind of
Yeah.
what it
Probably
comes
where I'm
down
at
to.
too.
And then I have the Falcons here
Yeah.
because a lot of things you mentioned, like Bijan Robinson is the type of running back that actually matters value wise.
The
And
talent on the
they
roster
have
is just really good.
yeah, like there's just a lot of pieces. They actually fixed the pass rush, and I think they sacrificed a lot in terms of run defense to do it. They didn't do a good job, and maybe this should really crush them that they traded a first round pick to the Rams to get James Pierce Jr. And he's just not a 3-down player to me. I don't think he
No.
ever will be. He wasn't coming out. So I think that panicking definitely cost them, but I like the Stefanski hire and I like a lot of the talent on that roster. If you do get something out of Penix now, there's your upside swing, right? Like
Yeah.
this is a question of path to top, like maximum upside. I would bet on the Falcons upside over the Steelers.
Yeah, you kinda have to. I think,
Yeah,
like, this
I don't even see what the argument would be for the Steelers.
yeah, the talent on the
The
roster
old
is
guys that are
good.
not
Yeah.
as good anymore are gonna suddenly get better, that they have the coach they no longer have the coach they loved on their side of the ball anymore. Like, I don't think that's a great argument.
No, and I think realistically, like, and this is where you start getting into it being difficult because, like, I obviously the Cardinals are tough to even rank because, like, we don't know
Yeah,
what the quarterback situation is going to be. We don't know what it wants to be, frankly. We don't know
yeah,
what they want it to be. Like, we're at 7 at this point. I mean, I'm probably this is where I think you can start talking about the Steelers again because at least
mhm,
with them, I think the Cardinals are too far away and have too many question marks that they don't even know the answers to yet. Like we don't even know if they want the quarterback to change necessarily yet. I
yeah,
assume that they do, but that process is going to require them to eat some amount of dead money. Is going to have to find a starting quarterback. I think if we're doing a 2-year exercise, they just might not be ready to even start like fully competing until after that second year, right?
yeah.
The Browns are the Browns. I think we can stop that conversation there. I think, I mean, the Dolphins, I don't know what to do with the Dolphins, man. I don't know. Dolphins
Yeah,
are they're about to eat a ton of dead money too, with Tua
uh-huh.
probably. And Tyreek Hill is going to save them money, but still you have to get rid of him. And so much roster building has to be done with that team too. I think I'm just going to take the Steelers off the board here and give them the benefit of the doubt over those teams because of how much work the roster has to do and the fact that those teams are actually probably going to do those things versus where the
Yeah.
Steelers are not going to do that. They're going to
Yeah,
try
and they're
to
gonna
go
try
for
to
it.
stay competitive,
Yeah.
and
So,
I'll definitely hear that argument over
yeah.
a 2-year window, which is this exercise.
Yes, I think that's where you have to
I
take them off the board, yeah.
There is honestly a very real case, and I considered making it for the Steelers to be last. Just in terms of they aren't willing to admit they need to go to the bottom. A lot of these teams forcibly got thrown to the bottom. So
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
just have a chance of hitting on guys that the Steelers won't have a chance of hitting on.
Right,
But I
right.
think it's right to probably I okay. In a non they're the Browns situation, and we can end the argument, the ranking here because it doesn't matter
Yeah,
the teams below the Steelers.
yeah, it's whatever, yeah.
in a they're the Browns world, right? If they're just any other colors, name, everything, or owner, wouldn't you rather be have the
See,
Browns roster right now?
I would maybe, but here's the problem. Even if you took away the name and everything else, and you would still know the process to which they got here. They're
Yeah.
about to lose the defensive coordinator that has helped take their defense to a new level because they refused to hire someone who didn't want to keep him, only to then still lose him because they didn't hire him.
Yeah.
That process, and this is why I wanted to talk about this because we didn't talk about it in our ranking
Mhm.
earlier. It is the ultimate Browns disaster move to end up hiring a 60-year-old first-time head coach, only to then lose the guy that you desperately wanted to keep. If apparently this was coming from the owner specifically,
Yeah.
desperately wanted to keep the DC, who you could have just hired.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just hired him to be the head coach because you're clearly, and this is the key thing, they are sacrificing the next 2 or 3 years of their franchise. They're saying, listen, we're not going to win for anything. We're not doing nothing. We're going to get this Deshaun Watson situation handled in 2027 when we can actually cut him off the roster. We're going to be bad for the next couple of years. We're going to sacrifice whoever this head coach hire is. Let's be honest. Tom Lincoln is the
Yeah.
sacrificial X of head coaches right now. I talked about that with earlier.
Yeah.
He is
He's the for the
essentially
love of the game route of
literally,
head coaches.
he's getting paid generational wealth to be bad and try to franchise for the next 2 years. And that's fine. Probably what the Browns need to do. I don't even hate that that's what they're trying to do, but the process to get there is why that they would have ranked 10 for me in this exercise, is because I don't think that there's anything they could possibly do over the next to make the Super Bowl. Every green light could be hit, and I still don't think that they would even be a playoff contender necessarily because of what they're trying to accomplish.
That's a good case. I don't really have much rebuttal to that
again,
case.
are they going to even try to, like, you know what I mean? Like, are they going to even try to?
Because my argument was to strip out all of the context, right? And the context very much exists. So I don't actually have a good
even if
rebuttal.
it was the Cardinals or whoever it was.
Yeah.
Like, it's just that's still are doing that. So yeah, it's tough.
Either way, that's the situation the Steelers are in.
Yeah.
Like, of these hires, the best, and I don't know what if they hired Clint Kubiak, I don't know how much higher they would necessarily be
on this
right
part
because
of
in this type of exercise, because this is a little more roster specific and things like that. But I think it goes to show like this franchise is really far away, and I think they've strayed even further by making this hire. And that's why now that all the dust has settled on this coaching carousel, I felt like it was a good time to revisit this. And I had a lot of fun doing the ranking with you here. That's going to do it for us for this show. We'll be back next Monday. Well, we as a tandem and potentially trio with Mark Powell will be back next Monday. You, Shane, will be back midweek for the show with Tommy. And until then, have a great one. And as always, go Steelers.